the worst problem. Communities had the worst problems. It was a combination of, they looked at pollution in the neighborhoods, and they looked at vulnerabilities. So there's data on this, so it's like concentration of ozone, PM 2.5, just study diesel? Just study diesel exhaust? Yeah, so that's the really fine particles of diesel exhaust. The big stuff that makes black dust or gets on your car or gets in your nose, like blowing your nose, that's the good stuff. It's big, so you can actually see it. Your mucous membranes will catch it, all that. The small stuff will go into your lungs. The really tiny stuff will get into your bloodstream and go into your cells. So it's the tiny, invisible stuff. That is a delivery mechanism to get into your cellular level. That's the really dangerous stuff. So the small stuff, that's the problem. That's the real problem. It's just all these kinds of things. Looking at pollution in areas. And the other side was vulnerability. Okay, so we have what's the percentage of children in elderly? Low birth rates. You know, is there an environmental effect that may be showing already, or some other health vulnerability that you can use low birth rates as an indicator, asthma emergencies, and then basically political power. Right? You have education, you have jobs, you say things, you get information, all of that. So we used all these criteria from information that we had to basically take areas and give them a score. How bad were they? They used census tracts, despite all their census tracts. No, I'm sorry, zip codes, despite all the problems, because that was the one aerial aerial category that was available throughout the state. You know, so if you're in Los Angeles, you can get down to a pretty fine-grained area for the air quality management district. But throughout the state, some places don't do that, so they have to find something. So there's problems with what they came up with, but it was in the interest of like a same procedure throughout the state, and came up with maps. I don't think we did. Oh. So these are the most messed up neighborhoods. Okay, so that's the top 10%. So those are the top 10% of the worst pollution and the most vulnerability. So we got interesting. A few places in the Central Valley and the Bay Area. So these are the ports and industrial facilities, and then a whole bunch in the Central Valley. It's a bowl in which pollution concentrates, and it has pesticides, and it's got high levels of poverty. And then we've got, this is kind of like that also, right? In agricultural. And then we got the LA region. So what's dark there is the 10%, you're in the top 10%. This is managed by pollution and vulnerability. So here, let's see, this must be the 605, 405. So Long Beach is here, but my house is like there. So if I go in the backyard, I'm in trouble. So kids don't go in the backyard. It's basically the port complex, and there's refineries, and then the 710 and the railroads coming all the way up into downtown LA and up into that area. And then over here, also you get a pile up of dirty air, higher temperatures, and you also get a lot of freight activities. So you can see there's other maps too, like you'll take the port pollution with diesel, and then they make excess death maps. So you can look up those too. We do pretty well on those too. I think Castile Long Beach is in like zone 2 or something. So a lot of the stuff you can't see, but it has a very bad health effect. So the port complex, you have the ports, the refineries. A lot of pollution comes from just handling stuff. When you unload something from a ship and put it on a truck, and then when you drive a truck, just park it and load it onto a train, and then when it drives out. So the ports are here, and there's freight stuff right in here, but land is tight, so a lot of things go, trucks will drive all the way out into the Inland Empire, They got enormous kind of freight transfer areas in the Inland Empire. So operations have a pretty big geography to them. You see like warehousing. You ever jump up on the 5 and you see like IKEA? You come over to Grapevine, and pretty soon there's a gigantic IKEA there. That's probably the warehouse for the Western States or something like that. Like the IKEAs themselves are big. That's the warehouse for the IKEAs. But it's basically coming from here, maybe coming from the Bay Area, driving to the southern Central Valley, and then unloading it into a warehouse there. So you have to move all the way out. So that's the areas that were identified as the worst. And I'll talk about some things. These maps were made in order to identify areas that would have investments of state money in mitigation activities that also do things that create jobs and clear the air. So it was part of attempting to rectify some environmental injustices. But I wanted to bring it from global scale to a neighborhood. So you have to think about what are ways of thinking about climate injustice and what would be a just response. So this is a summary. Injustice is inequalities in responsibility and impacts. We've seen that already. Big emitters, often very different from the places we get hit the hardest. When you have mitigation, reducing greenhouse gases, it's going to cost something. Who's going to pay? It could be inconveniences or hassles or burdens of some kind, right? How is that balanced off? Right? Getting help for adaptation. Is your house protected? Is your health? All of those kind of things. We've got, this is going to go on for a long, this is going to go on for the foreseeable future. And it's going to get worse, I hope, and before it gets better, I hope. It has to get better. But there's going to be a lot that we have to cope with. So are there resources available for adaptation? An example, different places get flooded, right? In the Netherlands, new houses are being built to float. Pylons and floating. Smart, right? It takes a lot of money to do it. Okay, if you get in Bangladesh, people are not going to build houses on pylons that can float. People are making houses by hand. So the resources to be able to do things to protect yourself from problems are very different in different places. And the benefits, I think there are benefits that have come. It takes a lot of work. To me, that means jobs and business opportunities. It's going to mean spending, and it's going to be spending of tax money. So how will that be distributed? How is it going to be targeted in a way that benefits people that are already disadvantaged economically, or small businesses that are having a hard time? The other part is role in policy making. Does somebody just make it, or do you have a say? And this is the justice side. The mitigation, we just have to do it. Even if it sucks and it's unfair, we just have to do it. That's just a human necessity. We should do our best to make it fair in terms of the cost and burdens. Adaptation, make it fair. Focus on people who are going to get hit the hardest. Focus on, you can reduce greenhouse gases at the same time you reduce pollution. It comes from combustion, and combustion has CO2, which is not toxic, it changes the temperature. But it also has particulates, it also has lots of chemicals in it. You can get 2 for 1 in a lot of cases. So really think about reducing both at the same time. Is it fair access to everything comes with it, and people should have a say in what happens. Here's an advertisement. The class in the fall. And in case you wanted to do more on it, Ethan was in this class. So some honor students, you can take it. It's environmental justice class. You've got the big background to it. What I've done is work on projects for questions that I don't know the answers. Things that I think are live questions now. So for example, on heat waves, are we ready? There are ideas about what we can do. There's sort of like frameworks that are planned by the state. All kinds of things to do with emergency, heat emergency. Recommendations, but it finally remains for the local municipalities teamed up with community groups in